Welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. Today I have with me in the studio a gentleman I've observed his work, admired and respected his contributions to this community, and was taken aback when I just assumed that he was an Albany State University alum, and then he just told me no, that he was not, but he is certainly an avid supporter. I'll let you learn a little bit more as I'm eager to learn a little bit more about Mr. Brian Jones. How are you?
Hello, doing well.
Very good, very good. Yeah. Do you remember that conversation we had? You were helping, it was right after our induction ceremony of our freshmen here, a big commencement of our fall semester, and you were supporting that, and we were speaking near the gravesite. Yeah. And I just automatically assumed, and you just said, no, I just like to support Albany State. So I was always impressed with your work, but extremely, I took it to a different level. So let's share with the viewers, who I know many of them are certainly very familiar with your work and what you do, but for those small numbers, let's educate them. Tell us where you hail from, the school system process that you attended, and then your post-secondary education.
Okay. Well, I am a native of Albany, Georgia. Grew up here and was reared here. Came through the Doherty County school system. Went on to Georgia State University, and I was actually an art major. And I came up doing artwork, drawing and painting and whatnot, all through grade school. And at a very early age, my elders recognized an ability in that particular area of creativity, and particularly drawing likenesses of things that I would see. At maybe about 3 or 4 years old, I drew something, and my grandmother didn't believe I did it, so I drew it again in front of her, so she could see it, and she was like, "Oh my," you know. And so that's one gift early on that I recognized, and so like I encourage young people to follow your passion, follow what you identify as an area of your gifting, and see where that takes you. And so I pursued that and went on to major in art at Georgia State University. But while I was there, it's funny how life works. I received a calling, what I believe to be a calling into ministry. And so, took that to the church world, and I've been there ever since.
And where is there? So where are you currently serving?
I serve as the pastor to youth and college students at Mount Zion Church here in Albany, under the leadership of Pastor Daniel Simmons.
Sure. And I say that because we are certainly proud and honored about the service and support of Mount Zion to the institution itself. And so, when you were talking about the art major piece, I'm reminded of an interview that I've done years ago, and the guest's name escapes me, but his body of work does not. And it was he's the author of The Godfather 2. And he shared during the interview that he does not encourage students or individuals to pursue a plan B. So when you said passion, it reminded me of that. He said, whatever your passion is, make that your only plan. And allow it to come to fruition, because when you have a plan B, it creates a default, if you will, and it's easy then to go to something else. I'd still grapple with that over the years. I'm one of those you need to some days have the whole alphabet in place. But what are your thoughts about that? Because you, and I applaud you, you said you followed your calling and went into the ministry, but do you share a similar or that same philosophy when you are educating college students and the youth in terms of pursuing your passion? What does that education look like as you share it?
Well, we teach that life is a series of a lot of steps, and you most of the time will not get to go immediately into what you would really like to do.
Yes.
And so you have to build up to it. You have to do what you may not want to do before you can do what you like to do.
Right.
And I believe, you know, your passion and your gift can turn into something lucrative for you. And I ultimately believe that it will make a living for you.
Yes.
But your particular area of interest is not doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know, there are a lot of inroads and outroads that are connected to it, I believe. And so one area of life in which may be characterized by a certain job that you just may need to take can be preparation for what you would like to do later on, because being honest, you know, what we all feel passionate about, we don't have the passion for the other things that come with it.
Yes.
That it takes
point.
to maintain it.
Yes.
You know, the behind the scenes work, the whether it's the business aspect of it, or, you know, just the everyday maintenance work. You know, that there's not much passion in that, depending on what your interest is.
That's,
you know?
right. And the
so,
sacrifices too, that
yeah,
you forget that.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not just, this is what I want to do and that's all I'm going to focus on.
Okay.
There's a lot that goes into building a person, I would say. There's a lot of training, a lot of time to invest, and time dues to pay, if you will.
Yes.
And a lot of exposure that we need, because say for instance, just in my line of work, there's not so much of a template that comes with it. I have to learn just as much as I can about any and everything.
Okay.
You know, and so that stretches me.
Sure.
You know, so that when I do get the opportunity to do the specific things that I'm very passionate about, I have more to bring to the table.
I would imagine. I was just trying to consider what your average day and week looks like, and I'm sure it changes probably hour by hour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because of the demographic that you're dealing with, youth.
Certainly.
They're bringing different experiences to each and every moment. And then I shudder at the thought of how many teenagers you have to deal with. And I say that because I've got a 16-year-old at home, and so they have so many things, just an onslaught of things coming at them constantly. And then still trying to step into their own, mature, navigate this environment, which can be treacherous at times and unforgiving, all of those things. So you have to help them in that process. And where some days I complain about the one, I don't want to use the word complain, some days it is that, but manage the one, help him to navigate that. You have a myriad, a large number. So how do you approach that?
You present yourself as someone who is open, who is intentional about showing interest in the young people, and you train yourself to have something to offer, something that is appealing, something that can touch where they are, but give them an eye view of where they can go.
Okay.
The possibilities of life, because my particular area of specific hands-on work, I guess, is more so with teenagers. When you talk about youth, and then of course the college demographic. And so I try to read a good bit about what goes on in the minds of teenagers. What's happening at that particular stage of their growth and development, their mindset, their drive, their emotions, even psychological and hormonal, stages and whatnot. And so a lot of what I see is a desire to be great, to do things that are, wonderful, even astronomical, because young people set their sights very high.
They do.
But along with that comes the flip side of that, in that there's a lot of skepticism and doubt. among young people, particularly as it relates to running up against certain challenges and whether or not you feel equipped to handle them. And I believe that we have to prepare young people for life, but give them the room to experience it. And so with that, unfortunately, but can turn out on the other end good. But sad to say that young people are going to experience things that they feel are too big for them to handle. And in the process of that, how they process it mentally and emotionally, it can cause a lot of drawback in how they may assert themselves.
I see.
And with what we as adults say, staying on the right track,
Sure.
doing the right things, and what have you. And so my job is to be there at those times.
Yes.
Where they've seen me in the positive, but hopefully they see something real enough that they can draw from during the negative times.
Sure, sure.
And so that's the challenge on my end.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
And so now I'm reminded of in passing, you had an opportunity to run into, I just did an interview with Superintendent Ken Dyer, and one of the running themes of our conversation is, or was, that people are always watching you when you don't even know that they're watching you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh, yes.
And teenagers in particular will
Oh, yes.
remind you. Certainly when I saw you, it's difficult for you to then hold me accountable when I saw you doing X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And that's why it's so important. One of my passions is to seek to live a life of integrity. It's so important that our young people see good examples of not just, people who society or even they would say are successful, but no matter what your area of work is, that they see that you have a certain character about yourself, because you can make $1 million or 10,000, but what will speak even more to them over time, because the outward appearance and what seems to be the appearance of success may grab your attention immediately.
Yes.
But over time, the character is what will be the lasting impression in their minds.
That's right.
Oh yes, oh yes. And everyone has challenges, and it's you can't avoid certain conflict in life, that may paint a certain picture about, whoever you are. But I believe as you stay the course and seek to have a clean nose and do things, whatever you do it for the right reason, as well as doing the right things. And people will see that over time, I believe.
They will.
And that will speak volumes to young people.
Sure.
I talked to a young man years ago. I'll never forget the conversation. I say, do you think it's possible to live a good life, a good upstanding life? And his unfortunate answer was, I believe it's possible, I just haven't seen it. So, that was a challenge not only to me, but to those of us who, are in positions of influence.
Yes.
I'm put it that way, to make sure that while we're doing whatever we do, that we do the hard work of maintaining a certain caliber, a certain level of character.
Yes.
And so, what does character look like? Being cordial to everyone, knowing how to handle pressure, not breaking down when you're going through situations of stress, because young people see that.
Yes.
They see how we handle challenges. They see how we handle recognition. They are watching to see if we are going to make it about us, or if we're going to make it about helping people and preferring others better than ourselves.
Sure. Well, thank you for reminding us of the human component. So when you said the challenge of doing that, and it's a daily walk, sometimes an hour and a second walk. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Had a moment in my car traveling over. Unfortunately, I had a person who was allowing me to vent for a second, but
certainly.
Again, that's critical, because then it allows us to say, because in our daily trek, there's always that part of us where we have to try to, we're speaking to ourselves, I've got to get everything right. And that's not always possible. But you still have to continue that walk to get as much of it as you possibly can right. Be forgiving of yourself, but then reassess, let's recalibrate, and get back on track. You cannot stay in that moment. So that's so important.
It is. And I think it starts with, gets back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago with taking the necessary steps. What kind of person are you building yourself to be?
Yes.
You don't just arrive at a certain level of character and strength and power and whatnot. It's what you purpose to be. And so every day you wake up, you have to think about the kind of person you want to be. I was talking to a young lady just the other day, and I said, she's been through some very steep challenges in her life, but she's trying to get her life back on track.
Excellent.
And I said, okay, now you have to be okay with being, because this is a big thing for youth today, is being bored. I'm bored. There's nothing to do. Well, you can create things to do, but just make sure they're constructive.
Sure.
And so I said to her, you have to be all right with being bored to a certain degree, but while you are trying to recalibrate your life and not getting into things that could cause you to go backwards and back into where you come from, sit down and define who you are. Take some time to write down some things. Write down your value system. Write down what's important to you. Write down who you want to become, because life does not start with what you do. It starts with who you are. And sad to say, too many of our young people are not getting the guidance to think deeper about who they are. We just go off of impulse, and I'm just going to do what I feel and take my cues from what I see. And that's why I said, exposure is important.
Sure.
And what you're exposed to will greatly help to shape who you are.
I agree.
Because if I see negative opportunities that seem to work for people, then that's what I'm going to probably gravitate towards. Sure. And so if I see if I'm exposed to positive things that show me good possibilities, then I will more than likely be prone to see how I can pattern my life after those examples.
That's you offered her great advice. We need to disseminate it. Hopefully everybody will have an opportunity to hear your countless lessons throughout this 30-minute window that we have. You reminded me, and I share this with my 21-year-old and my 16-year-old, about you have to be mindful and give great consideration about what your mind receives, ingests, and processes. And so, whether it's that video or that YouTube clip or the constant social media, you are taking that in, and it is going into the recesses of your mind, and it's going to be processed in some kind of way.
That's right.
And I know I've had to change how I approach that with them, because it is so where, I think I'm old, I'm sure that I'm older than you are, but we didn't have that constant barrage coming at us. Exactly. So it is a part of who they are. So you cannot dismiss that. But they certainly need to be mindful and control what they receive, and how they receive it, and the level in which they receive it. So I'm telling them, you need to, I can just tell by, behaviors and demeanors that they're exhausted. And so then I'm questioning, because I go to bed early. So I'm like, how long did we stay up last night? What were you watching? What were you, looking at? You did not give your chance, your body or your mind an opportunity to rest and relax. So that you can have those moments of self-reflection about the day. What did I get right? What do I need to improve upon? When the Creator gives me an opportunity to start anew the next day. You need those moments. And so if you're constantly receiving the negative, that is how you're going to respond, and you do it unconsciously.
Oh yes. And I think this barrage of, and technology is wonderful. There's so much we can do with it. So much. It's countless possibilities. I was looking just this morning at the news and looking at how they're continuing to develop robots and artificial intelligence and all that good stuff. And I mean, it's just so many ways we could use technology to help people in our community and around the world. However, there's a balance with everything.
Oh, excellent.
And I read articles that talk about how technology is changing the way people learn now. It's changing the way we process information, and consequently, it's changing. People's personalities.
I agree.
And the way we respond to various stimuli and how we process things, and therefore making it difficult to slow our minds down when we need to. Everything is so quick. Everything is impulsive. It's I look at young people and they have 2 seconds to spare, and they're flipping through anything they can flip through, looking for something to catch their attention.
That's right.
Versus you create your own attention, you create your own reality.
Sure.
And so we have to make sure that we impress upon them, and we ourselves not become creatures who are always looking for something else to motivate us.
Or to entertain.
Entertain. Yes. You create your own reality, and it comes down to things of being able to appreciate yourself.
Sure.
Seeing the value in your own existence.
Yes.
And not filling the hunger within with affirmations of your worth and your value. I talk a lot about that to young people.
Great.
So that you are not so dependent upon things that just grab your attention immediately.
Yes.
Because there's some learning and knowledge that you get from various things, various places, but how do you educate your heart? How do you educate your soul? And what are you pouring into those areas of yourself?
Sure.
And whatever your various beliefs are and whatnot, I think we can all agree that there's an invisible part of ourselves that needs to be fed, if you will.
Oh, a steady diet.
Oh yes.
A steady diet. We're going to transition again before we wrap up. But you reminded me, I had an opportunity. My son and I attended an event last night. It was actually here on campus, and again, we are the new administration under President Frederick, because she is very committed to, of course, the continuance of the mastery of the academic piece.
Oh, yes.
That's why we're here.
Certainly.
But again, that whole, as I liken it to, that hand and glove, and the glove, if you will, the hand being the academic piece, but the glove being the social graces, the social etiquette. Is just absolutely paramount. We owe that to the students.
That's right.
To address that, she, along with, it was under the direction of Dr. Tracy Williams, who's over our career services department. So we had a day-long day of dining etiquette and interviewing skill development, and we had Price Waterhouse to come in. So some really heavy hitters too that we're partnering with. But the day concluded with lessons in dining etiquette. And I was honored to attend and observe, and our students were very engaged. But I asked Dr. Williams, I said, please ask the facilitator, who was outstanding, to address the whole piece of the, while we're dining, the phone.
Yeah. The distraction.
The distraction. So when you were speaking, I said about the whole technology piece, and I said we are really, instead of us controlling the technology, we have allowed it to control us.
Oh, yeah.
That is the first thing we look at in the morning. What did I miss? Who tweeted? Who put whatever on Facebook? And just the contributions to societal social ills that. So what stuck out about the conversation or the whole training piece last night is that she said there is the table sitting before you, there is no spot on it for a phone. So that resonated. And then she made it a point, make sure that you are having a conversation. Now to me, I was like, of course we're gonna have a conversation at the table. I mean, there are other people, we're gonna, let me learn more about you. Minister Jones, tell me about your background and the person that's sitting before me. But then it quickly resonated with me that because we're so attached, and particularly young people, because that's this era that they were born into, that's all that they know. So then she had to provide that level of direction to get them to understand that you're not there to eat. It is rude to the other individuals at the table. So my point is that is where we are finding ourselves, and that we have to provide that level of education. It's not just germane to Albany State University, as I said in a previous interview. It is across the board. I talk to people, and I know you do, all different walks of life. And that is what we see when we go out to restaurants.
Oh yeah. You see couples eating, and they're each individually on their phone.
On their phone.
My wife, she likes to take pictures, so she will pull her phone out to take pictures of where we are. If we're in a restaurant eating, before we leave, she takes a picture. I make a point to put my phone down. And simple things like eye contact, giving the courtesy to someone else, because we have to keep alive the reality, and I say reality because it's real, even though many of our young people, and maybe people in general, forget that you're not the only one on the planet. And your interests are not the only interests that exist. We have to be careful to acknowledge and recognize people. When I walk on the campus, I make a point to just speak to people, to students, whatnot. Whereas a previous mind would say, well, I don't know these particular group of people, so there's no connection. Well, you have to. There's an inherent connection in the fact that we're human, and that we're on this planet.
That one common factor.
One common factor, and that we all have something in common. I truly believe that.
I do too.
No matter what our walk of life is, our background, where we come from, and our present set of circumstances, we all have something in common. Unfortunately, the barrier there is that we just don't know. And so the assumption comes in, well, this person, these people can't relate to me. When I believe we can. I may not have gone through what you've gone through. I may not have had the set of circumstances you've had specifically, but there's something there that can resonate with me, and there's something in my life that I believe can resonate with you. And so we have to build bridges, launch out there, strike out there, become social fishermen. Throw some bait out there.
I like that. I like that.
And see what you get.
I will use that, and I'll send you your check every time that I use it.
That's
I love that. Absolutely, yes. And that's our all of each of our responsibilities to do that, to initiate. We get in that habit of waiting for somebody else to do it. That is excellent advice. Before we wrap up, oh my gosh, after this conversation, even more so curious to know, who do you respect, admire on an international scale, that you say, yes, I love those qualities and traits. I want to not necessarily replicate, but take those jewels and apply those to my life.
Yeah,
Who would that individual or individuals be?
Well, speaking of the past, you know, well, I won't say it's cliche because his work still stands. I really admire more and more, the more I learn about him, Dr. Martin Luther King. There's so much about his life that he just gave every ounce of it. And I believe that, you know, when it's your time to leave this world, it's your time, because you have either, I don't know, wasted your time, or you finished, or you have really finished your work.
Sure.
And he lived in such a way that he finished his work, even yet early. I'm older than he was now. I'm older now than he was when he died.
Yes.
And I think about that. I'm like, my God, all the things that he did
accomplished staggering
before the age of 40.
It is staggering.
You know, it's staggering. So just giving of himself to the level of he gave everything. And how many of us can say we are truly giving everything?
Right.
In terms of the present, someone who, you know, the youth can relate to. I'm impressed with figures like LeBron James, who has become an icon in the sports world, who is a pop culture icon. Everyone knows his name. He's a cool guy. You know,
indeed he is.
He appears in fun commercials, you know, and he gives toward education.
Philanthropic endeavors.
I mean, it's awesome.
Right.
He's one that says, hey, you can accomplish your goals, you can be skillful, you can be cool at the same time, and you can have your business in order.
Yes.
Because he's one of those athletes that is not just physically adept, but he is really learned and skilled in ways of business and managing your life. Absolutely. He is an example of the person who can make millions and not spend them before you finish your career.
Indeed, indeed.
You know?
Yeah, his intellectual prowess is very impressive.
Oh yes.
If I could piggyback on that just slightly, and I'm very impressed with him and what he's been able to do, and he does it unapologetically.
Unapologetically.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Right.
And we understand the ramifications of that. Right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that. But you reminded me of when you provided him as an example, and not spending your money is Shaquille O'Neal also shares that, where I read some years ago that all of his earnings from the NBA have not been touched.
Wow.
Yeah. Because of his outside endeavors, business endeavors, that's the spending change, if you will.
Yeah.
So the NBA earnings have been banked.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the interest that's building off of But the other stuff, so the commercials and the endorsements and all of those things, that's my spending change. So
that's all right.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna get there one day.
We're gonna get there one day, right?
Yeah, but that's an excellent example. So of course I have to have you back for part 2, part 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so much information, and so impressed with this conversation. And my mind is racing. I'm like, now how can we infuse this conversation in our core curriculum? And the students need to hear this. So hopefully we can get them to listen to when they're listening to their devices in their ears, get that incorporated somehow. But thank you for what you do. Again, I go back to the origins of this conversation, but it's a testament to your commitment to being a servant leader. So wherever the need is, I am there to hopefully serve in some capacity, and that is what we all should be doing.
That's right.
The whole adage, and I know it's cliche about blossom where you are, and so that's exactly what you've done.
Oh yes.
And it is to be marveled because you are dealing with, again, a group where they are having so many physiological, emotional changes in a constantly changing environment.
Oh, yes.
I'm so thankful to the Creator that He saw fit to, you will be born in 1966 and not, so that you could be a teenager. I just cannot imagine, but I'm sure every generation says that, and this generation will say that about those that come down the road, but they do. They have a lot, and we have to pause and just say, wow.
Oh, yes.
So my point too, before we wrap up, I applaud you, because it is, you made a decision. You followed, of course, your calling, but again, you found that you were trying to impart into the lives of so many, and then play a role in their development.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I've really been afforded a wonderful opportunity, because no one arrives anywhere by themselves, and so my deep gratitude and will always be to the organization that I'm a part of, with Mount Zion Baptist Church, and affording me the opportunity to serve, to learn, to grow, and to become a better leader, a better servant, and one who can hopefully make an impact for years to come.
I'm sure that you will. I'm sure that you will. Thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. My pleasure. Things happen when they're supposed to, but I'm thinking like we should have had him on years ago.
Oh, well,
but this moment in time was this moment in time, and it's a perfect moment. So thank you.
Yes.
Come back anytime. Certainly, just let us know the great things that you're doing over there as it relates to our youth. We cannot get enough of that information out into the airwaves. So thank you.
That's right. Thank you again, Wendy.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Viewers, thank you for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I will see you next time.